In the year 992 AD, a delegation from the Philippine Islands arrived at the imperial court of the Song Dynasty in China. They traveled over 1,000 miles across the South China Sea, carrying tribute gifts for the Chinese emperor. The emperor received them, recorded their visit in official imperial annals, and recognized their kingdom as a sovereign state with legitimate authority. The kingdom was called Tondo, and for the next 600 years, Chinese records document regular diplomatic contact, trade missions, and formal recognition of this Filipino kingdom as an equal partner in Asian geopolitics. Then, in 1571, Spanish conquistadors arrived in Manila Bay, conquered Tondo in a series of brutal battles, and systematically erased it from history. Today, most Filipinos have never heard of the Kingdom of Tondo. Those who think it was just a small settlement, maybe a collection of villages with a local chief. But Chinese imperial records tell a different story. They describe Tondo as a wealthy, powerful kingdom that controlled strategic trade routes, commanded military forces, and maintained diplomatic relations with the most powerful empire in Asia for over 6 centuries. By the end of this video, you're going to understand how a Filipino kingdom became so powerful that China recognized it as a legitimate state in 992 AD, why it vanished from history after Spanish conquest, and why this story proves your ancestors were part of international diplomacy long before Europeans arrived. What's up, everyone? Before we dive into the lost Filipino kingdom that China recognized almost 1,000 years ago, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we're uncovering the international history of pre-colonial Philippines that textbooks completely ignore. Let me start by explaining what it meant for China to recognize a foreign kingdom in 992 AD, because understanding Chinese diplomatic protocol shows just how significant this was. The Song Dynasty, which ruled China from 960 to 1279 AD, was the most powerful empire in the world. Their economy was larger than all of Europe combined. Their technology was centuries ahead of the West. Their military controlled millions of square kilometers of territory. When foreign kingdoms wanted to establish relations with China, they had to follow a specific protocol called the tribute system. This wasn't just trade, this was formal diplomatic recognition. A kingdom would send a delegation to the Chinese capital carrying valuable gifts, tribute items that demonstrated their kingdom's wealth and sophistication. These might include gold, rare textiles, exotic animals, spices, or crafted goods unique to their region. The Chinese emperor would receive the delegation in a formal court ceremony. If he accepted the tribute, he was officially recognizing that kingdom as a legitimate sovereign state. In return, the emperor would give gifts of even greater value, Chinese luxury goods like silk, porcelain, bronze items, and sometimes titles or official seals that confirmed the foreign ruler's authority. This exchange established a relationship. The foreign kingdom gained access to Chinese trade networks, diplomatic protection, and the prestige of being recognized by the world's most powerful empire. China gained tribute, trade goods, and acknowledgement of their superiority. This system was highly selective. China didn't recognize every minor chief or tribal leader who showed up claiming to represent a kingdom. The tribute system was reserved for established states with real political authority, organized governance, military power, and control over defined territories. When China recognized a kingdom, they were saying, "This is a real government. This ruler has legitimate authority, and this state is worthy of diplomatic relations with the Chinese Empire." In 992 AD, Chinese imperial records state that a delegation from a place called Tondo arrived at the Song Dynasty court. The Chinese referred to Tondo as Dongdu, or Tung Liu, in their documents. The delegation presented tribute gifts to the emperor, who accepted them and established formal relations. This wasn't a one-time event. Chinese records from the Song Dynasty through the Ming Dynasty, spanning from 960 AD to 1644 AD, mention Tondo repeatedly. That's over 600 years of documented diplomatic contact between China and a Filipino kingdom. Think about what this means. In 992 AD, when most of Europe was in the Dark Ages, when England was being invaded by Vikings, when the Holy Roman Empire was fragmenting into feudal territories, a kingdom in the Philippines was engaging in formal diplomacy with the world's most advanced civilization. Your ancestors weren't isolated primitives waiting for Europeans to discover them. They were sophisticated enough to navigate international relations with China, powerful enough to be recognized as equals, and organized enough to maintain those relations for 6 centuries. Now let me tell you about Tondo itself, because understanding this kingdom's power explains why China took it seriously. Tondo was located at the mouth of the Pasig River, where it flows into Manila Bay. This location made Tondo incredibly wealthy and strategically vital. The Pasig River connects to Laguna de Bay, the largest lake in the Philippines, which in turn connects to dozens of rivers reaching deep into the interior of Luzon. Anyone who wanted to trade with the rice-producing regions, the mountain communities, the settlements around the lake, had to go through Tondo. But Tondo wasn't just controlling a river. It was controlling one of the best natural harbors in Southeast Asia. Manila Bay was a hub for maritime trade. Ships from China, Japan, Borneo, Java, Sumatra, Malacca, Siam, and other regional powers sailed into Manila Bay to trade. Tondo collected tolls from ships entering the bay, provided security for foreign merchants, facilitated trade between sea traders and inland communities, and took a cut of every transaction. Every ship that came through Manila Bay enriched Tondo's treasury. The Kingdom of Tondo operated what historians call a mandala system, common in Southeast Asian polities. At the center was the Lakan, the paramount ruler of Tondo, who controlled the capital and the immediate surrounding area directly. Radiating out from the center were subordinate communities, smaller barangays and settlements that paid tribute to Tondo in exchange for protection, access to trade networks, and military support when needed. The further you got from Tondo's center, the looser the control, but the tribute system extended Tondo's influence across a substantial region of Luzon. Tondo maintained this system through a combination of economic incentives and military power. Communities that paid tribute to Tondo got wealthy through access to international trade. Tondo's position on Manila Bay meant they controlled access to Chinese, Japanese, and Southeast Asian merchants. If you wanted Chinese silk, porcelain, or bronze, you dealt with Tondo. If you wanted to sell your rice, gold, or forest products to foreign traders, you went through Tondo. This created a network of communities economically dependent on Tondo's trade access. The evidence of Tondo's sophistication goes beyond Chinese records. In 1989, a copper plate was discovered in Laguna Province, called the Laguna Copper Plate Inscription. Dated to 900 AD, almost 100 years before the first documented Chinese contact. This document is written in Old Malay using an Indic script, and it records a legal transaction involving the forgiveness of debt owed to the commander of Tondo. The inscription mentions multiple officials with specific titles, references a complex calendar system, and uses terminology from Sanskrit, Old Javanese, and Old Tagalog. This single artifact proves that by 900 AD, Tondo had writing systems, legal documentation, debt and credit economic systems, a hierarchical government with multiple levels of officials, and cultural connections to the broader Indianized civilizations of Southeast Asia. When that delegation showed up at the Chinese court in 992 AD, they weren't representing some primitive village. They were representing a sophisticated state that had been operating for generations, possibly centuries. Chinese records provide specific details about what Tondo sent as tribute and what China gave in return. According to Song Dynasty documents, Tondo's tribute missions brought items like gold, pearls, tortoise shell, exotic woods, woven textiles, and other products from the Philippine archipelago. In return, Chinese emperors gave silk, porcelain, bronze vessels, iron tools, and sometimes official seals or titles confirming the Lacan's authority. These weren't just economic exchanges, they were diplomatic ceremonies that reinforced Tondo's status as a recognized kingdom in the Asian world order. The fact that these tribute missions happened repeatedly over centuries shows that Tondo maintained stable governance across generations. You can't sustain 600 years of diplomatic relations if your government collapses every few decades, or if you're just a loose collection of villages with no real authority. The Chinese wouldn't keep recognizing you. The continuity of contact proves that Tondo had institutional stability, succession systems that transferred power peacefully, or at least effectively, and enough wealth to keep sending expensive tribute missions to China. Let me address something important here. Some historians argue that the tribute system was just China forcing smaller kingdoms to acknowledge Chinese superiority, that it was an unequal relationship where China lorded over weaker states. There's some truth to that. China definitely saw itself as the center of civilization, and the tribute system reinforced that worldview. But for kingdoms like Tondo, participating in the tribute system was worth it. Yes, you had to send expensive gifts to China and acknowledge. They continue in the next video.